It's not the first time, and it's probably not going to be the last, that we've been beaten by Scotland, beaten to the punch. So England is shamefully behind when it comes to beavers. And what's just happened yesterday is that NatureScot, have announced that they are allowing beavers to be released into the wild in Scotland on, I think it's the River Spey. I'll have to check that one, but I think that's right. And you might think that we've already released beavers into the wild in the UK. And yes, technically, I think we re-released beavers onto the River Otter after sort of taking them off the River Otter for a kind of evaluation period. But in most areas where beavers have been released in the UK, they've been released into enclosures. And the reason for that is that DEFRA and Natural England are going through this kind of evaluation period, and they haven't decided that it's actually okay to release beavers. And while there's a lot of public support for beavers, there's also a lot of pushback from landowners. And it's not necessarily without its merits. Like there are some sort of valid reasons that landowners might want to push back. When you get a beaver dam, you get a beaver pond behind it. And if you're the person who ends up with the beaver pond on your land, you do lose land as a result. You do get flooding of infrastructure. You do potentially get waterlogging of fields. You might potentially lose crops due to beaver damage. But these are all things which can be compensated for. There are schemes, compensation schemes which can be put in place to compensate for this loss. And the other benefit, of course, is that where you have a beaver dam, you've got water on your land for longer periods of time. And what we've actually found is that landowners who have beaver dams on their land, they've benefited. And for example, I think it was the Clinton Devon estate. They had beavers on their land this year, and they were talking about how through the drought it really helped them, because it meant that livestock had somewhere to go and drink during the worst of the drought, because when everywhere else was bone dry, the areas where the beavers were damming still had water. And NEP was showing areas in their new beaver enclosures which still had lots of water even throughout the worst of the drought. So it's a really good thing for livestock if you got beavers on your land, potentially. There are people who disagree with that, but you can see it both ways. So I can understand to some extent why some landowners are unhappy with this idea. But if you look at the overall benefits which beavers bring, which is that they restore river systems, they bring back fish, breeding fish to river systems, they restore the quality of the water in our rivers by trapping nutrients, by trapping pollutants, by trapping sediment behind the dams. They improve the biodiversity of our river systems by creating these kind of differences between the lotic and the lentic systems. And they also create tourism opportunities as well, because I visited the River Otter, which ironically is home to a lot of beavers, it's just south of Exeter, and I visited it last December, I think, and it was just absolutely throbbing with tourists, and most of them were there to see the beavers, not really the beavers, but the beaver signs, because everywhere you went there were, beavers gnawing on trees, and not actual beavers gnawing on trees. There were little signs of beavers gnawing on trees, and there was sort of amazing sort of wood shavings, and there was even a beaver burrow which had gotten exposed, and actually I saw a water vole footprints as well alongside beaver footprints. So it was great to see that alongside the beavers there was this healthy river ecosystem which was developing once again there, because on the very same river, maybe a decade previously, I'd seen mink, American mink, which predate water vole. So it was really good to see a healthy river ecosystem re-establishing there. And the beavers were really playing their part in that. There were trees being felled into the river, and the banks were being, they're restored, brought back to life, because as soon as those trees are felled, most of them are riparian trees, which are they're used to being felled. They grow in these river edge ecosystems, and they are used to beavers. They have co-evolved with beavers over thousands, millions of years, and they are used to beavers going up and nibbling them and chopping them over. And as soon as they're chopped over, they'll jump back into life again from the cut stalls, throw up masses and masses of new lush growth, and that's just all part of the cycle. That's just how they function. So it was great to see this kind of like natural cycle re-establishing itself after so long of trees going unmanaged, effectively, sort of unprotected, unconserved. When we think about conservation, we think about sort of keeping things the same, but actually, when I think about rewilding, it's about bringing back change into a landscape, and it's about bringing back the natural change which you would see in a wild landscape, and beavers are part of that natural change. They're part of this kind of disturbance that you would see in a natural landscape, and that's why I think it's really important to bring back beavers into UK ecosystems. And yeah, it really is disappointing to me that it seems to be being blocked by the English government, and yet Scotland has gone ahead, and it's amazing for Scotland, brilliant for Scotland, and all power to them. It's fantastic to see that they're doing it. It's really disappointing to see that England are falling so far behind with this now, and we were taking, a few years ago we were taking the lead on this, but now we're just falling behind. So I think we need to really put the pressure on the English government now and say, you know what, the public want beavers back. And I think the best way of doing that is a public pressure campaign. And I'm sure the Beaver Trust are already working on something like this, but hashtags always seem to work. So I think something related to beavers would be great. Bring back beaver, or I don't know. Maybe I'll put something in the post, and then see whether or not you can sort of repost it and put something about your own feelings about beavers, because they're just such charismatic animals. I've only seen them in the wild in Canada and North America, but when I have seen them, they've just been amazing. It's just been such a special experience, and seeing the signs in the UK is just incredible. It just feels like we're reclaiming these ecosystems and just bringing back the wilderness to the UK, and it's just fantastic to see. So yeah, we can do it. I know we can do it. It's just it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And let's just bring that date forward. Let's just push and get this thing over the line. Thanks for your help.